Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Ueyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, September 4th. We've got a mailbag show. We've got a mega mailbag show, Jamie. There's a lot of questions from Irish Sports Daily customers that we got about the game, about the team, about all things Notre Dame football. So we're going to be answering those questions. It's going to be a good show. It's going to be a long show, so strap in. We've got a lot of good ones. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please hit the like, please hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing. You've seen it on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. And ESQ, of course, is founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. ESQ is your go-to spot for the best handmade custom suits, sport coats, tuxedo shirts, and more. ESQ's master tailors combine next-level craftsmanship with the finest fabrics to deliver a fit that's built just for you. Now with showrooms with both downtown Chicago and in Winnetka. Book your custom fitting at esqclothing.com. Mention ISD your appointment. Get 10% off your entire purchase. And as a reminder, there is a Labor Day sale, kickoff sale, 20% off all online ready-to-wear items, including ESQ's award-winning bamboo dress shirts and their new luxury dress tee. Use code KICKOFF and get 20% off all online items through September 6th. That's through September 6th to get 20% off all online items. Use the code KICKOFF. And that's esqclothing.com. Jamie, I think I've got a luxury dress tee coming to my home very soon. Very excited about that. I've been waiting for ESQ to get into the t-shirt business. They've done it. I got one coming. I'm going to be wearing it all the time. So
where's mine?
Hit them up.
I didn't hear anything
you
about
know
that.
what? You got to be proactive.
No, I don't care. It's
great
if I get it. I don't care about it.
You got to be proactive. Eric Fasano is bringing up some good points. You know, we're talking about accountability, things that got to get better. We got to look at the new leprechaun. The new leprechaun logo is 0-1 at Notre Dame, and you got to look at everything when it comes to, you know, why things went the way they went in week one. So that's something to monitor as we move forward. All right, let's go to the questions, Jamie, because we have a ton. Start with ND Paul. He has a bunch of questions. Is Notre Dame playing a different type of man-to-man defense than last year? Are we doing, for example, a match man? Feels a lot more passive. Did Notre Dame press more last year? It seems like Notre Dame got beat a bunch playing man. What do you think about that?
Well, they played like 20% less man in the secondary, basically, in this year than they did on their average last year. So that's quite a bit less. So they're just playing zone 20% more. That's quite a bit. So that's a big thing. They definitely played way more press last year than they played in this game. That's 100% true. Yeah, I just think, I mean, also too, when you play a lot of zone too, that's why like a lot of those like short underneath stuff is open, right? And that's why when you're getting the ball out and it is a lot more passive, just in general, right? I think that's, you know, part of it for sure.
They definitely didn't force the issue as much as they have in the past. He asked about 2, even 3 highs. Did Notre Dame do it very often in the past? We kind of touched on that. The pivot and the whip routes that we're talking about, is this Miami thing? Is Notre Dame covering it worse? There's another question later on in the show about that. So we'll kind of blend that in. I'll read the question because I want to give credit to the person who asked it. But we're going to kind of cover that here. I don't know that Notre Dame is susceptible to them. Here's the thing. Anytime every coverage has against a route in man specifically, like you always have a way to win, right? And you want to cover it a certain kind of way, no matter what they run. What happened is Notre Dame, a couple of times, they just they weren't talking about press. When they were running those coverages, Notre Dame's players were a little bit playing off a little bit. And so therefore they're not in touch with the wide receivers. Then you're susceptible to something like that, a change of direction like that. Best practice is when they're teams are running crossers, you want to get in touch. You want to be close because then you don't have to worry about the crossers getting bumped off, right? So when you're playing away from them, that's when you're susceptible to running into your defenders. So that's not something you want to do. You want to get into their hip and you want to be in touch with them. A couple of times that did not happen. It didn't happen with Carson Hobbs. It didn't happen with Christian Gray, which isn't, I'm not casting blame on them because if they're playing off, they're playing off. It's very hard to get in touch like that. But if you're playing off, then you need to slow play a little bit coming across on a crossing route or a mesh route because you're susceptible to them coming back. Notre Dame got beat twice on that. It's something they'll work on, I assume, because teams saw it. They're going to try it again, right? It's something they got beat with. They're gonna try it again. You have anything on that, Jamie?
Yeah, because I know somebody else asked about the crossers. So this is pretty much just taking up that question too. So we'll just kind of blow by it. But like, I think one of the things too is like you see on film, they run a lot of mesh. So it's like you're preparing for that, and you are probably being over aggressive in trying to stop that. And they know it's good self scouting by Miami. Like it's understanding like, hey, this is how they're gonna play it. They know that Notre Dame usually plays mesh pretty well, so we think you can get open if we run a whip route here. Mm-hmm. The other thing is like they were talking about Malachi Toney in the pregame and during the game about like how talented he is and all that, and that's something they had like they were raving about him in camp too. He's awesome. Like he was the best skill player in South Florida last year, right? So in that class. So it's like he's also got to be good at it too. So it's a combination of like him being really good, them kind of like going against the tendency to try to beat them on a certain play. It's so it's a good call by them. And also too, it's like exactly what you had said earlier too.
And they got the coverage they were expecting.
Yes.
So that also helps out. Leonard Moore, well, he's asking why he got beat so often, 3 or 4 inches of him getting beat. I think a couple curl routes that he lost on. Did you see anything from Leonard Moore that was?
I didn't see the whips and pivots. I didn't notice that he was like losing on those. That wasn't him on those Malachi Toney ones. So that was Hobbs and Gray. And I didn't really see anybody else really winning on those, like on that specific route. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, couple curls. I think what I saw with him is like I didn't think his footing was great.
That came up a couple times.
Yeah, and I know somebody asked about the wet field, and like I think it probably did have an impact on him, and it can have an impact on different guys based on like, some guys need different cleats, or some guys run a little bit different. They plan a little bit different. They need different things to make them feel comfortable. And they won with that. And I think, that's part of it. But also, like, you got to give credit to, like, Beck was, like, putting it on. I think it was Marion on those curl routes, too, right? Like, those were good throws. Like, so there's that as well.
I think there's the second one. I think it was during the drive before halftime where Beck stepped up in the pocket and he hit the curl route to Leonard Moore there, or against Leonard Moore. That's one where it's like, that's kind of why you want to bring pressure, because then your quarterback just can't easily step into a pocket like that. Or not. And when we say pressure, I don't mean like you don't have to bring a bunch of numbers, but run a game. Run a sim pressure so that he's not totally sure what he's looking at, and you confuse the offensive line. That was a situation where it was a straight 4-man rush, everyone just rushing straight ahead, and the defensive tackle, I think it was Onye, gets washed down. He's able to step up into a clean pocket and throw. Like Notre Dame just wasn't letting teams do that very much last year, and so that's the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, maybe Notre Dame's corners were a little susceptible to call routes, and basically any corner in press is going to be if the receiver is going to be able to push off like they are. And I'm not complaining about it.
He did push off too. Yeah.
It's something that happens in football games, right? And Notre Dame they gave Notre Dame leeway to be physical with them as well, so it's not a complaint. But like when you're if you're in press and they're allowing the receivers to be physical and push off on the defensive backs, then you're going to lose on that a lot of the time. And so that's why you want to pressure the quarterback and you want to get people in his face. So yeah, that's kind of how we saw it. Irish Bronx says, what's a realistic timeline on Jagisaw? We had some information that there was a cleanup procedure that could delay his return. I mean, it's going to be a bit, is kind of how we see it. What is your thought on this, Jamie?
Well, the thing is, too, is there's no realistic timeline, even if we didn't have that information that, oh, maybe it would be a little bit longer than expected, just because it's just one of those things where, like Riley Leonard last year, like, oh, yeah, he'll be good for the spring. And it's like, well, they screwed up the surgery at Duke. So they had to go back in and clean it up. So that changes the timeline. No one expected Jordan Botelho to be back and like ready to play at this point in the season after he tore his pec in the summer. But sure enough, he was ready to play and, was pretty good, on third down in his role. Only played 9 plays. He's going to play more as they go along. Yeah. But I think that's you can't tell. Like, everybody's got a different timeline and timelines change because of it. And don't expect him to come back. Like, anyone who thinks, well, Jagasaw is going to come through the tunnel just like Willis Reed in the Knicks or whatever, that's not happening. Like, when he's back, he's back.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm not thinking of it in terms of like, he's not ahead of schedule, I guess is a good way to put it. Maybe that's kind of the nature of the question. There's a question in the chat about Denbrock wanting Minchie and not Carr. I'm kind of over this. And Jason Burkhart says, and there's a reason I'm bringing this up, and you'll see what it is. Heard it was why Carr ran so many times. Wanted to show Minnie fits better in the scheme. What? I want to throw this to you, Jamie, because there is a schematic reason that they ran him so many times. So what happens a lot, and we saw this from Miami, is when teams play a lot of too high, that's to take away explosives, right? So Notre Dame didn't have many explosives in this game because of the nature of the way Miami was playing their safeties. If you play too high, then you want to run your quarterback, right? Because it makes a lot of difference. Like if Riley Leonard, if they played Notre Dame with this type of coverage and Riley Leonard was a quarterback, he might have run for 150 yards, right? So they ran him because of the way that Miami was playing their defense, right? So that was why it happened, in my opinion. That was what I saw. It's like they're playing so far back and so soft in the secondary. I posted it on Twitter. They were giving Malachi Fields 7 yards of cushion on a back, like not even a back pedal. Like he's open, turning and running. Like Miami was not letting that ball go over the top on them. They wanted Notre Dame to have to drive the field. So that was kind of what I saw, and that was why they did that. So
yeah, no, I think it was like what they were giving him, and also like he can run, and I mean he scored a touchdown on it, and he did a good job. That if I shared it on Twitter, so people can check out my Twitter if they want to see the play. But like on the play where Lambert, blocked the wrong guy and it got blown up in the backfield, like that was it's funny.
It's a big play.
It would have been a huge play. It was set up so well. It was a great call. The great call for that situation. It would have hit for like 30 something yards. I don't know, maybe more if Carr had the juice to get more or whatever, right? But like if it was like Leonard, it probably would have hit maybe 50, 60 or whatever. But like, that's just what it is. And everybody wants, I understand people get frustrated, but everyone wants to be like, well, this or that or whatever. Like, these guys want to win, man. Yeah. They're not doing stuff out of spite. Like that's not how it goes.
Yeah. Next question from Silent Call. You look around college football and you see coaches scheming wide receivers open and massive running plays on offense and free rushers on defense. It feels like Notre Dame, we didn't see that from Notre Dame. Everything looked so hard where the offense and defense were completely reliant on Notre Dame guys just being better. And if they weren't, then they're screwed. Do you think that's a correct read on what was shown Sunday night? And if so, should Notre Dame make it change to make it easier for the players?
I don't think that's a correct read, because if you look at, like, say, Miami, like Miami's guys won their one-on-one matchups at D-line, like those D-ends won, but they didn't have a lot of free rushers. There wasn't free rushers on Carr when they blitzed or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
there weren't assignment busts.
Yeah,
That wasn't the deal.
They weren't turning guys loose. You know,
there were
based
physical
on
errors.
scheme. Yeah, physically guys getting beat, right? So, you know, losing their assignment, but not losing it mentally. And I think that, so that was the case. And I also say, like, you know, they had the one bust, the huge bust for them where, you know, Raritan got the huge play. And Notre Dame had the one bust, or had like a couple busts, right? Like they had the Hobbs touchdown was a bust, and because it wasn't just all on Hobbs. And the other corner route to Elijah Lofton was a bust. There was like a miscommunication in terms of what the coverage was, right? But that's it. That wasn't, and those weren't like schemed. Those weren't schemed up. And it's like, because when you get good teams, you don't have a lot. Like, and if you watch, like, say, LSU Clemson or one of those games, how many things did you see schemed up in those games? When the teams are good and like the coaches are good and the players are good, you don't see a ton of that, right? When the coaching isn't as good is when you see like more of that, or like the players are overwhelmed because, you know, physically, that's when you see more of those massive running lanes and free and that kind of things, because offensive linemen aren't good enough in those things. And I will say they didn't do enough to challenge the Miami offensive line with free rushers. I think that we both agree on. Also, I think one of the things that Miami did, which was really smart, and I'd like to see Notre Dame do more of, is have some tight ends, have some running backs, chip those edges. Why didn't they? That should have happened way more. They were doing that the whole game to Notre Dame's rushers. Even actually on the play that they got the sack, that Boubacar got the sack, they chipped Botello and Boubacar on that play. So they really had like 6 guys to block 3 on that, and Notre Dame still got home. But like, it's really hard to get home when you only are, you know, are doing that and they're adding in there. So they could do more to scheme it up for sure. But I don't really think, like, you know, once you get down to these types of games, there's occasionally some stuff where things get schemed up, like, you know, or like that pivot route is you know, or the whip route.
That's a good example.
That's a scheme.
Yeah,
that's a good example.
Yeah,
not too many of those in a game like this.
I think there were a couple opportunities, and there was a previous question about Jeremiah Love and trying to get him open. There was one where they had him on a wheel route where Notre Dame just got unlucky because they blitzed the corner into his wheel route and he ran into Love, and it screwed up everything. Like
that was a great play by the corner. That corner did it on purpose.
Right. No, he should miss him.
Yes.
He does. He should not be running into the back, but he saw him, and so he ran into it. Notre Dame got unlucky there.
Great play
because they had the safety, or they had Love matched up on a linebacker, and he's going to win. The other part of that too is like Micah Gilbert. You got to get out of there. He messed it up because he ran into the corner. That's another part of that where like they just weren't very. They didn't execute it very well. But like that was an example of them trying to scheme something for their best player on the team.
Also, there was the one that was, I mean, it was kind of a drop, but it was more of like not a great throw. They ran middle screen twice. They ran on the last series. They also ran it on the first series of the second half. That play was set up huge, but just lack of execution. And that Lambert play that we talked about, right? That was schemed up to be a big play too.
Yeah.
But you got to execute. You got to execute when you get those opportunities.
Yeah. So it's just there. I do want to mention, because you brought up the Hobbs touchdown, and I put something out on Twitter. I do want to point out, like a couple of people reached out to me and said that Luke Tolich might have been told to kind of shade to the field because of Mark Zachary was in the game. He replaced Christian Gray. I don't know exactly what he's told, right? And so it's kind of, but given that, like, you can't really get on Tolich for being out of position or whatever, because I don't know what he's told. I don't know how he wants to play it. I know how the defense calls for the safety to play it in that situation. But if he's told something different, then he's told something different. You can't hold him. I personally can't hold him accountable because I don't know what it is. So for me, I just kind of absolve him of responsibility without knowing the rest of it. What I would say is like, that's why you don't do that. Like you don't tell players to change the scheme of the coverage to accommodate someone else. You should just run a different coverage.
Yeah.
That so that it's sound. Because you see why you want the player in the middle of the field. Because the post route, Hobbs is in a terrible position. He cannot. It's not fair to ask him to cover all that space. It's just that's not how that's designed to work.
He wouldn't have played that leverage in that coverage if that was the case. Yeah.
Right. So I just want to be fair about that because I talked about it on Twitter and we talked about it yesterday. Want to be fair to Luke Tolich on that. Keenan Knight says, has Notre Dame considered scheduling Navy every year in week 0, week 1? Would you support this?
I mean, first of all, I don't want them to play Navy every year. I'd rather it be like every second year or every third year kind of thing. Yeah. I think would be better. I think it is good to play them early on. I think it's actually like a really good thing. That would be great to get it out of the way. I don't know how realistic that is of that happening because if Notre Dame wants these matchups with like, you know, A&M, for example,
that's the problem.
A lot of those times it's like, well, they can only play in those early September games. So, and Navy is, I mean, amenable. They're like, hey, whatever to keep the series, right? They'll do whatever. It's like how, you know, all of a sudden, it's just hilarious to me how USC really wanted that for years to have that October, you know, so it's not too cold in Notre Dame. They wanted that game. And then, I mean, it made sense for them to have the closing in November too. And then now they want to switch to September, you know, or whatever, or not play it at all, whatever. They're trying to just strong arm Notre Dame. Like, get the hell out of here, Jen Cohen, you loser. Sorry to go on the tangent, but get out of here, USC, you freaking losers. But if you do that, like with that, you lose out on those games. And I also want to point out, so like the Miami thing, that was like bad luck for Notre Dame. That's the ACC basically like, hey, let's do this. Like, because that game didn't have a set time. It's there. The ACC chose that. And fair enough, Notre Dame does get like Clemson in November or whatever, right? Or like Florida State in November, Miami. And those are advantage Notre Dame, obviously, right? But to play that game in the first game, that wasn't supposed to be like that. It just, they switched it to that. And they were supposed to get Miami in like November last year. That's where the Army game came in, the Shamrock Series game. So it's just kind of bad luck that it happened like that. Normally you don't have Miami and A&M there. So it's, I know a lot of people would want to blame that on, you know, Jack Swarbrick or Pete Pavakwa or whoever, right? But like, they got nothing to do with it. It's not their fault.
It was outside of their control. Irvine Jack asks, how much does ISD think the wet field impacted how aggressive Notre Dame pass defenders were? They managed to avoid slipping and falling, but man, it was very challenging surface to play on. Miami's DBs had to deal with the same thing. Did wet field favor the larger, more physical Miami O-line against Notre Dame's maybe quicker D-line?
No, that's not a thing. That's not a thing with like, you know, that's not like why they didn't do it. Also, you didn't see like, I didn't see Notre Dame's D-line like slipping and sliding or anything, even if they were doing movement. So I don't think that was, that's not a thing at all. I will say, I mean, just some guys play better or more comfortable playing on a wet surface and are more used to it than playing not. Also, too, like at Notre Dame, that is one of the advantages of playing on field turf is like, it's not as bad. It is better to play on field turf when it's wet than it is when you're playing on grass when it's wet. Yeah. Especially when it's like on grass when it's 2 days after another game or whatever, right? So, I mean, it probably had some kind of impact, but Miami's playing on the same surface, so you can't really say any, you know, thing that they, you know, it was a huge advantage for Miami when they played the exact same field.
I think the thing that Miami did in the running game is they moved straight ahead on Notre Dame. And Notre Dame did a lot more polling, did a lot more reading, did a lot more of that stuff, right? And that is easier just to go straight ahead, just period, right? For anyone, especially when you have a size advantage. And then if you know, maybe there's a little bit of footing issue. I don't really. I thought the field held up pretty good. I thought I didn't have any issues with the field. You know, there were a few instances in Miami kind of slipping around too. So I didn't see it as a factor in how the game was impacted. Domar, I hardly know her. Other than handing the ball to Love more, what steps would you like to see the offense take now that CJ Carr presumably has his feet under him? That's a good question.
Well, I think one of the things, you know, a little bit of what we kind of talked about is like, okay, if those, it's not exactly related to Carr, but if those tackles are struggling, you got to have more to help them out, and not just screens. Like, Chip, do some of this. I understand that changes maybe how you want to get Raritan or Love involved in the game in terms of their, you know, what they're doing in the pass game. But sometimes you have to sacrifice that, or in order to get run other stuff. And that's, you know, Elijah Lofton was a kid that, you know, they were, Miami was raving about, like, man, this guy could be a star. Well, they chose a specific way to do that rather than him, like, you know, he was always in tight, or most of the time he was there because they wanted him for that specific reason. Sometimes you got to do that. And you have to be able to do it. And they did it against A&M last year. Maybe they just had more confidence in their guys and they shouldn't have, but there's that part of it. You know, and I wrote about it in 6 Thoughts today too, like 9 targets for Eli Raritan, 6 targets for Love. Yeah, we want to see Love get more, you know, run in the pass game. It's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to get him more involved in the pass game, but you know, Raritan also, like, he had 2 drops, like not ideal out of those 9 targets.
Bad drops too.
Bad drops, right?
Really bad drops.
And you know, that's another play like that. One of those was like schemed up really well to be a big play, and you got to catch the ball. But I think when you have your tight end and your running back have a combined 15 targets, and then Jaden Greathouse, Will Pauling, and Malachi Fields have a combined 5, that's a problem. Like, that shouldn't be the case, right? Some of that has to do with protection. Some of it has to do with like the RPO stuff. Like, Faison got 6 targets. Well, a lot of those were, I mean, pretty much all of them were screamed. His average depth of target was minus 1.3 yards.
Right.
But still, like, Fields did a lot on, I mean, he gave up the fumble on the one play, but his 2 targets down the field were, I mean, he had 2 explosive plays, right? Find other ways to get him the ball. Greathouse just basically wasted a game with him. Like, find another way to get him the ball. Like, have him do some of those things that you're doing with Love. He's a better receiver than Jeremiah Love is. Not that he's not a more talented guy, period, but he's a better receiver. And you have to be able to do that with, you know, decide too whether or not, like, those weren't all like those weren't check downs to Raritan. A lot of those were like calls where he's the first priority. 9 is too much when those other guys aren't getting that much. So he made some plays. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to continue to have a good season. Hopefully he doesn't, you know, the drops don't become a regular thing like that. He catches the ball more consistently.
Yeah.
But get the ball to the other guys. There are other opportunities there. I think that has to be a priority.
For me, a big takeaway is Malachi Fields. Do figure out how to take advantage of him. He is a very impressive athlete. Very impressive. Like, I watch him run and I'm like, man, this guy, like, this is a lot closer to Claypool than to Boykin, in my opinion. I mean, they tested the same, but just in terms of twitch and explosiveness, I mean, he looks really good. I want him, like, figure out how to get him into the slot, figure out how to get him anywhere. Like, he just looks like a very, very good athlete, and that's is something that I think Notre Dame really needs to take advantage of. That was my big takeaway.
Big play from the slot last year against
ND. Yeah. Figure out how to get him going, because that's what you want. Sweet Lou 88, guys, how bad is the O-line, and can it be fixed?
I mean, I know this is the thing everybody's focusing on. I mean, one, I kind of mentioned, like, give those guys help if they need it. Like, I think that goes without saying. Like, the other thing is, like, I get they're not Martin and Stanley. You know, like Knapp and Wagner aren't Martin and Stanley. They're also way better than they played in that game. And you have to, you can't just judge them based on that game and say, well, these guys stink now. Now Rudolph stinks. It's like, well, what about when those guys were playing well? So, I mean, no one was talking about it then. I hate the whole narrative. It's like people jump on the bandwagon to fire some guy. And it's like, well, that game happened, fire this guy. It's like, they weren't saying it before because they'd sound like idiots, right? Like, you can't just pick and choose week to week. Now, obviously, if they continue to play bad, then you have to look at it. Like we talked about in the last podcast, they're accountable for those players,
right?
For sure. They have to be able to play better. But I have some bit of confidence that they will play better because they have, you know. So from that perspective, I do think it's fixable. I also think that anyone who said, like, well, they decided to get rid of Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler. I mean, Ashton Craig was the best lineman on the team in the game. Billy Schrauth played fine. And, you know, the right guard, that was the kind of game you expect from the right guard in the first game. Maybe you want to be a little bit better, but you also don't expect the tackles to lose like that. If the tackles play better, then that right guard, it's not as big of a deal. It's just becomes that. Also, you didn't expect Charles Jagusah to get hurt because
right.
Let's just say Rocco Spindler stayed after the season and went through the spring, and then they were like, well, we're going to start Charles Jagusah. Oh, he would have left after anyways, instead of staying. And then Jagusah breaks it. They'd be in the same spot. So it's just, there's no real thing about, you know, there's a lot of what ifs there. Right. Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
Well, no, I was just going to say, like, I think for Wagner, he's a captain. So he's either going to play better or Notre Dame is going to struggle at right tackle. They're not just going to bench him. Right. That doesn't happen to captains. Anthony Knapp is different. Right. Because, like, Joe Rudolph will find a solution. If he did it last year, he named Sam Pendleton the starter and he took him out. Like, he was just like, it's not what I want. I'm going somewhere different. Right. So he will make a move. So to me, that's what it is. As far as, like, do I think they'll get better? It's like you said, they played better all last year. No, Anthony Knapp never had a game like that last year.
Literally all of last year. Better in the first game than they did. So I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be better. And the other thing I want to point out, which isn't talked about enough, it seems to get talked about by the people who aren't Notre Dame fans, the people who just cover the sport generally. Those Miami defensive ends were awesome in the game. Bain and Messidor were awesome. I got to say, those were the two best games that I've seen from a pair of edges against Notre Dame's tackles. And again, run, pass combined, they were dominant. So you have to give credit to those guys too for being studs as well. And frankly, like, just based, I mean, we'll see because different guys develop. Some guy will emerge out of nowhere for, like, maybe BC ends up having some stud guy or whatever. Who knows? I don't think Notre Dame's going to see an edge as good as Ruben Bain the rest of the year. They might not see another edge as good as Messidor the rest of the year, because if you look at who A&M has, Cassius Howells is a guy who's pretty good, very good pass rusher, whatever, based on what, you know, like the first game and what he's seen last year. Like, he's not going to be a top 10 pick, you know, like how Bain is. So those guys are that good. And I think they totally backed it up. And go look at the draft Twitter and talk about, like, those guys, how, or specifically Bain, and how they were talking about him. He just basically was the guy that he was as a freshman. Now he was healthy, and just unfortunately, he was a game wrecker.
Yeah. He ruined the game for Miami. PD9. What adjustments do you anticipate the defense making in the Texas A&M game? Do concepts from last year get installed for these 2 weeks? For the O-line, is if there's a poor start again for, say, Knapp, do you think there will be a shuffle during the game? For example, move Knapp to guard and put Lambert at left tackle, or move Knapp to guard, Lambert at right tackle, or Wagner to left tackle. I don't think they'll ever move Wagner. He's staying. I think he's said, I like right tackle. I think if anyone gets moved, it's Lambert to left tackle, and then they just play Absher at right guard just to get that out of the way. But we did kind of just talk about the O-line. But for the defense, what adjustments do you think that they'll make there?
Well, I'll just real quick on the thing about their, like, I don't see them making that call within a game, especially you have this bye here. If they're going to do it,
I think we'll hear about it.
This will happen during this time.
Yeah.
Like, this is the time to do it. And I know everyone wants to move, like, Knapp immediately move inside. I can't tell you if he's taken one snap inside at practice. I've never seen it. I've never even actually heard of him doing it. So to say that he's just going to be able to plug in and go there, maybe, but I don't know that for sure. So I don't think that's like a 100% thing. Could they move somebody to left tackle? Yeah, but I think it would almost be a disservice to Lambert while basically he worked all at right tackle, in camp, and then worked at right guard when they got in the right guard competition. And now you're like, hey, by the way, now you're going to move to left tackle. Like, that's a lot to ask of him to do that. So I don't think they will do that. I think it's probably more likely if they did do something, and like I said, it would be Styles Prescott. You're competing for that job right now with Knapp, or Will Black. Hey, you're going to get in the mix and maybe compete there. And do I think that Prescott is more likely than Black at this point? I would say, just because
he's practiced. He's
practiced there. Yeah. So, yeah. But I would say that if there's far less likely of them doing any kind of big shuffle within a game, it would be way more likely that if it was in a game and Knapp was bad, Prescott get in. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for the defense. Well, for the defense, what do you think they'll do different?
I mean, I think they're going to do more of what they did last year. I think that is like, so in terms of installed, I think a lot of that's already there. It already exists within it. It's just, they just did less of it, and they're going to do more of it. And maybe they will install certain things that they didn't do. That, like, install happens for every game, new installs happen. So that's not like a shocking thing to happen, especially during a bye week. Like, that happens. So yeah, they will tweak what they were currently doing. They'll probably install maybe like some stuff that they were doing before, or just do more of what they were doing before. I think you'll see the linebackers play it differently. Like, the linebackers are playing, so they played about like 40% less man than they were before. They played a lot of man coverage last year. They didn't. I think they'll probably do a lot of that, because also that activates those green dogs, right? Like, for, the green dog blitz, and we talked about that briefly in the last episode, where if, a back stays in, that's like the play where Snead came in and blew up the one play. Notre Dame's backers are good at that. Yeah. Continue, like,
yeah.
Don't take that out of their arsenal, right? So I think that's one of those things, and there'll be other stuff, and pressure wise, I'm sure, like, you always expand the pressure package as the season goes on, anyways. But I mean, I really hope it really gets upgraded.
It's hard to answer, because I don't know how they feel about it. I don't know how they feel about how that went, or what the problems were, or what they need to do different. You know, like Marcus keeps talking about sending 4, rushing 4. We got to win with 4. Maybe they think that's the way to do it, you know, and maybe they think that their defensive ends and their defensive tackles are good enough to just win, and they're going to play the same way. I don't know. I agree with you. You know, when you see a defense play the way that it did last year, and then you see it this year, people bringing up the linebackers in the chat and how passive they were. We saw that too. You know, so I don't know what to make of that. That's the sort of thing that they've probably been trying to work on and install and have them play that way for this entire time. So if that's how they want them to play, you can't just say, well, okay, we're going to go back. Like you can, but it just makes it hard, you know? And that's the sort of thing where, you know, when we said on a number of shows in the offseason, like Chris Ash was a major question, but we can't even comment on it until we see them play a game. You know, there were a lot of, you know, there was conjecture and talk about how well the defense was playing in camp. Sure. But, you know, until you see them play and what you want them to do, we can't really analyze it. I got to say, same thing with offensive line. Just the way that they tried to play on Sunday was very surprising to me. And so it was so surprising, in fact, that like for me to say, well, they need to go back to what they were doing. I don't know that they think that's the issue. I don't know that they think that's a fix. So it's very hard to answer this question. I would say even if you want to send 4, send more Sims. Give them more, confuse them, make the offensive line confused, confuse the quarterback, show them one coverage and then float to another coverage. You know, they didn't really do anything to confuse Miami. And that's the part that was really surprising to me.
So. Yeah. And I think also too, you have to, I mean, you learn from watching the first film about like, this guy played this way and, you know, this guy played this well. And it's like, well, you learn from that and say like Jared Dawson. I mean, he did play the most snaps out of any defensive tackle in the game, but like, I mean, no one would watch that game and say Jared Dawson shouldn't be the starter. You know, for the next game, he was better than Heinisch, like much better. So like, there's those kind of things, right? Where, and also too, like how you're using those, how you're utilizing guys. I think that's another thing to obviously look at. But I do think, you know, someone brought up like there is a little bit of an overreaction to the, you know, the Ohio State game or, you know, maybe even the USC game. Because there's a difference between like realizing like, hey, this helped get you there. This helped get you to the national championship game. And also like, so keep most of it, tweak rather than whatever. And this game to me was an example of too much tweaking. You did too much. And like, there are things there that you just like, it's not enhancing. If you go far away, if you remove your identity, then that isn't a good thing.
Yeah. It's kind of like, a great golfer changing their swing. Like Tiger Woods did this in like 2004, changed his swing all around. And it's like the greatest golfer ever. But there was something that he didn't like about it. So he wanted to change it for whatever reason. And I think it may have been the case that Marcus Freeman saw how his defense was exposed by USC and Ohio State to some extent and said, we can't do that. We need to get this out of our game. We need to be able to win this way. And we'll see if that bears fruit. But I don't know. It's like I said, we said it yesterday. I just didn't like what I saw. I didn't really like it at all. Another question. Everyone agrees that Al Golden's defense was much better his second or third year than the first year. What were the reasons for the struggles in the first year and the improvements in later years? And are there any comparisons between Golden's first year issues and the issues you identified with the defense on Sunday night?
Well, with Golden specifically, like talent was better. Like that is 100% thing. Like the talent got better than his first year. So that was part of it. And you know, he talked about it. He admitted it after the first year. Like they had too much stuff on the menu. Yeah. They had too much and they pared it down. And then once they kind of mastered that, then they expanded out. And that was something. And that's might be something with Ash. And that in that way, I think that could be very similar, where they were like, hey, guess what? We ran this coverage, throw it out. We don't know how to run that well yet. Throw that out. Or we tweak this, throw it out. Or we got to change this, right? Like, that's the thing. And also that's the benefit of having like an early buy where you can do that
for sure
and like that. But I also think too, like one of the things why, Golden's defense got better was there were guys who developed over that course of time. So like Xavier Watts, perfect example, right?
Yeah.
Perfect example. But then also too, they developed within the system. So there's going to be guys, and it's just a fact too, that, Ash has to find a balance, and it is a hard balance of like doing like, hey, we're going to do this, but we can't do this yet or whatever. That's fine. You got to find that balance, and that balance is hard to find early on when you're playing tougher opponents.
Yeah,
I get it. So that's where he earns a little bit of grace because of that. But the fact that, he said, well, this is the most talent I've inherited since going back to 2014 Ohio State. When you say that, you got to do a better job coaching those guys.
Yeah.
That talent there has, because there's a reason, like, it's like people think that me or anyone who was there at camp was like, oh man, this is the most talented, defense that they've had in terms of just like overall depth and blah, blah, blah. It's like we were lying. It's like, no, that's the truth. He said it too. We got to do a better job with it. And so you have to decide what's best. And I think with Golden, part of it was maybe taking it. It's funny because he was the master at like in-game adjustments, but I think he took too long to adjust to that during the season.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need like to take that full picture look after, and it's harder to do. The thing is that Notre Dame has the rest of the staff there, and they have Freeman there. So they should have the people there to say, yes, look, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to switch and whatever. Because that's something that I think was great with Goldman, was that he gave autonomy and he gave voices to all those people on that staff, and they were able to, communicate and plan stuff. And then also that helped the defense be way more cohesive and the best it could possibly be. And I think that's going to be key going forward.
I mean, the good thing is that there's, like you just mentioned, there's a lot of minds, really smart defensive minds who can figure this out, and they'll work together, right? The one thing we know, they want to figure it out. That's the biggest part of this. And we know there's kind of a solution. They just need to find it. Running back related questions from Ohio ND fan. Did you agree with what appeared to be the benching of Price after the fumble? He was on a roll prior to that. Does Love hurdle too much? Seems like he could tone that down and lower his shoulder a bit more. Let's go to the first one first.
He played after.
He did play after.
He played after. They just didn't hand him the ball. And I don't think it was. I think it was more of the game flow of why he didn't get the ball again. I don't think they benched him for that. Well, obviously he played, went back and was returning kicks after too, but he was on the field, but he was on the field for like pass plays and stuff. Maybe even like RPO calls where they pulled it. I can't remember, but I do remember he was out on the field after. So it wasn't that. Probably should have gave him the ball again after.
So to speak to the game flow, I think he is probably the one most hurt by how the game went after the drive where he scored, or where he had the 30-yard run and got Notre Dame all the way down the field, basically. Because Notre Dame doesn't get the ball again in the first half, and then there's a 7-minute drive coming out of halftime. And then the first drive after that is 3 and out. It's like, Jeremiah Love hasn't gotten the ball in that time either, right? Like everyone's kind of talking about how, John Bryce is talking about the number of minutes, like real-time minutes in between Jeremiah Love touches. Like you do need Jeremiah Love touches, and you're chasing the game, which is like Jeremiah Love, get him open in the passing game kind of thing. So I think if anyone was negatively affected by how the game flow went, it was Jadarian Price, right? Like it just wasn't his type. It went from his type of game to not his type of game. I think he was hurt by that. I don't know that he was benched per se. I do know, like, he fumbled at the goal line, man. Like that's a big deal. Like you can't fumble
he got benched against Louisville last year,
for the same thing.
so
It was a different coach, but but it just you just can't fumble there. You know, I want him to get the ball, but it just the game flow is kind of understandable on that sense. I think Jeremiah Love lowers his shoulder more than he hurdles. It's just that the hurdles are so prevalent.
I think in this game, he hurdled. First of all, he hurdled more in this game than he has in any game.
Yeah,
he was but I think it's because he was just desperate to try to make a play because they needed it.
Yeah.
So I think it was more of a reaction to that. I don't think you're going to see him. Like, obviously he's going to hurdle some dudes this year because that's part of his game.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see it nearly as much as you would in this game. Like, I saw like Mina Kimes threw out like a meme during the game. It was pretty funny. But like, nobody. And it was like somebody doing like the splits over a thing. It's like Jeremiah Love. Right. But yeah, you're not going to see it that much. He did it more in this game, but go back and watch the highlights last year. I mean, how many times did he hurdle? Probably like, I don't know, 6 times all year. He's ran guys over more or ran through around them more than he did that. I don't think it's going to be like, him doing 10 hurdles a game.
Yeah. But like the 8-yard run in the first half, like he gets around the end and he lowers his shoulder on the corner. Like he just absolutely rammed into him. He caught another pass along the sideline, lowered his shoulder then. After, and funny enough, after he hurdled the guy, he lowered his shoulder on 2 players. Now, granted, 2 players knocked him out of bounds, but like he threw himself into it. It's not a question of like he's not lowering his shoulder. He will do that. He is not afraid of the smoke in that sense. It's just that when he senses it's a good time for it, then he does it. I mean, on the one where the play got called back, he almost scored a touchdown. He jumped over the guy and he was a yard away from getting into the end zone, So to me, I only care if he's doing it at the time where it's like it doesn't work. It seems like it always works and he always gains yards after the fact. So as long as he's gaining yards, I'm
the ones where he was doing an extra, he was still gaining extra yards from it. Yeah. So it was like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as he's not getting flipped over and getting hurt, like.
Yeah. Irish at SJS, those short crossing routes by Miami were killers. What was the problem? Coverage issues or linebackers? I will say linebackers were not the issue in coverage pretty much at all in this game. So It was a clean game from the linebackers, and we talked about it earlier. It was just the nature of how Notre Dame's trying to defend crossing routes. Next question coming in from Seat Pampson. CJ Carr was a bright spot on Sunday. He looked poised and the moment was not too big for him. Watching the TV copy, I can remember at least 2 instances where he got all the way to his 4th read. If they are comfortable giving him full field reads in the first start on the road against a top 10 team, then why not open things up a bit more? I think playing faster may help this team. Slow down the pass rush, give more pre-snap. So basically, if they trust CJ Carr to go full field reads, should they give him more responsibility?
Well, I mean, they're going to know whether or not he's going to do that. If you give him that the whole game, that's when he probably does throw it to the other team and make some of those mistakes. Like there's probably a reason for it, why they don't do that all the time. The other thing is like, part of the reason they throw RPOs and they do some of those screens is like they're trying to slow down that pass rush. Other than there was a good chunk of the second half before the final drive where they did a really good job actually in protection. But even in those things, you're giving opportunities for Miami to like really kind of like tee off if you're, dropping back and holding the ball a long time and going for, like, if you're on your first of all, fourth progression, maybe that happened on the Reardon play, but like that doesn't happen. It very rarely happens to anyone, right? Like it doesn't happen very often. So, the more confidence, they get with him, he'll get more of that, but also they got to feel confident they can protect him in those situations, because you don't always want him having to scramble for his life or make perfect examples, like threw the ball away. You got the intentional grounding. Like, it was, you could tell he probably felt in his head, like, I'm an idiot. Like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I made the mistake. And that's one of those things. It's like you learn, and because he's doing that, it's like he's got to escape and he's got to do some of those things. And you don't want him to have to do that. You don't want him to have to escape all the time. It's just sometimes he'll have to, but you don't want that to be the case more often than not.
Yeah. And if you want to escape into a fun hobby, then you can do that with pickleball, Jimmy. H2 Pickleball, founded by alum Todd Hill, is teaming with fellow alums Jack Gibbs and Will Howells, a top 10 pickleball pro, to bring Notre Dame fans the Notre Dame Pickleball Crew League. Besides football, what better way to connect and engage Notre Dame fans than through pickleball? Membership is free. The members will have access to special pickleball events and discounts. Their first event will be a tournament before the Purdue game with medal rounds played on campus. A portion of the proceeds will go to the Rockne Athletics Fund to support Notre Dame student athletes. Contact Todd at h2pickleball.com or 574-339-5195 to join the league. And be sure to visit the H2 Pickleball facility in Mishawaka when you are in town. H2 Pickleball is located at 55801 Evergreen Plaza Drive in Mishawaka, Indiana. Let's go to the next question. Irish fan for life, also an Arsenal fan. CJ Carr did about as well as I thought he could, exceeded some expectations. Tricky question to phrase. Do you think the lack of touches, love, and price got is due to the coaches wanting to get Carr too involved? Were they too Carr focused, or was it how the Miami defense dictated Notre Dame's strategy? Just feel like the coaches got too centered on Carr in the passing game in the first half. I don't think they were too centered on Carr. I don't know that they should have given him the responsibility of those RPOs like that. If you want the ball to go to Love, then you need to give it to Love. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and then also too, like if you think about like the tunnel screen on third and long on the very first, drive, like, I mean, they're calling that to protect him.
Yeah,
like it's not something where they're like, hey, we got to, really get CJ Carr involved. If they wanted to get him involved, they would have dropped back and say, okay, well, we're going to protect and we're going to run this or that, some kind of complicated route concept where he's going to have to layer a throw over there. Like, So I don't think they got him too involved. And I think later on they had to, because of where they were at in terms of the game late in the game. But I don't think in the first half, like, maybe they could have done more to get, the game going. But it's like, if you think about the 1-3-0 where it was busted up, right? Where the Lambert play. And then you think about, you throw a quick screen on first down and it's a fumble. Like, those plays like kill you in terms of what, game flow and how much you can get guys involved in the game. So I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Again, it's almost like I was very, very encouraged by the way Carr played, but remember, you do have Jeremiah Love on your team. Like, there is a sense that I got where it was like Carr was the focus. And I don't want to put this on the coaches. It was just a vibe that I got. Carr was kind of the focus, and maybe it's just a mental thing for me, but the focus needs to be on Love. Like, I think people need to watch games feeling like that's their best player. They are getting him involved to the hilt, and I don't know how to quantify.
Hand the ball off to him.
Yeah,
more.
yeah. Like, I don't know how to quantify that. I just feel like he needs to be the reason. Like, I don't I don't think this team needs Carr to be the reason they're winning games. I think he can help them win games. Like he can deliver it, like physically, like from a passing standpoint, like he can deliver in a way that I think in ways Riley Leonard could not, right? But I think that's in service to aid the talent that they have, like Malachi Fields and Jeremiah Love and those guys. Like he needs to be a complement to their skills, not the other way around. Because I don't know that he's ready, and he shouldn't be ready for this. He shouldn't be ready to be the reason Notre Dame's winning games. It needs to be Jeremiah Love.
I also want to point out too that, if you look at, say, the first drive, 7 plays 30 yard, should they have got more love? Yeah, sure. First drive for sure. But like you said, some of those are RPOs. Second drive was the fumble.
The fumble. Yeah.
The fumble. Next one, they ran it with him, got an 8-yard gain, got a 1-yard gain. They had a call on third down. It was set up, right?
They blew it. Yeah.
They blew it. And then the next drive, it was another 3 and out. And then
the next drive was another 3 and out where they threw the ball to Love. They ran the ball to Love. And then it was an incompletion to Greathouse. So like they were, and after the fumble, they really tried to get Love involved.
And tell me this too, because I was thinking it at the time. I was like, it would be nice to get Jadarian Price involved here too. Like, I mean, he didn't get a carry until he got a designated drive. And then that drive, I mean, that was their only good drive of the first half. So, it's tough. Like I think they had the intention to do more with it. It just, they didn't execute. It just didn't execute. Yeah. The other part too is the 2-back stuff. Every time they went 2-backs, they tried to get the ball to Love. Give the ball to Price in when you're in 2-backs. Yes. Because it's just a tell. It's just a tell if you're doing that. So, like literally every time they're in 2-backs, they either gave the ball to Love or they threw it to him. It's just not. Well, I think that was the magic of when they would run 2-backs before, was that they'd have like Kyron Williams out there, and then all of a sudden they'd throw it to Logan Diggs in the flat, and he would turn it up and get something, right? Yeah. Or, when they had Tyree and Audric Estime out there together, you would think, okay, well, Tyree's, sprint, moving out and going to the slot. Then they throw, an angle route to Estime. Yeah. You got to do that kind of stuff. Yeah. Silent Cough says, if the defense isn't significantly better than next Saturday against A&M, is it fair to label Ash Hire a bust? So here's the thing. They did give up 4.7 yards per play. Like no, I would not say. So it's not fair. It will happen by people for sure, but it's not fair because no one should be judged if you get hired in a new job based on, the first 2 games. No one should be judged on that, but it's also a reality of the job of like what he inherited, where Notre Dame's position, expectations for the season, that people will view it that way. And is it fair? No. Will it be viewed that way? Yes. So it's the other thing is too, is that, for most of the game, the offense stunk. So, and one of the things too, and it definitely stood out after rewatching it too, where people thought, oh man, Miami's O-line dominated Notre Dame. No, they did not. That was not the case in the game. But you go back and watch, the all 22 of the thing. Oh yeah, Miami's D-line did do that. Like those ends really did destroy it. So it's different there, where it's like the offense, if the defense plays that way and the offense played better, they still probably win the game most of the time. Just the difference is what we kind of talked about. The defense last year played good enough where it's like, well, the defense won the game, and that's what they're missing. Is that fair that he has to do that? Probably not fair, but it's also what's going to happen. And that's But that's why if you take this job, it's just like Kalen DeBoer. Is it fair that after the first game of his second season, there's like, Bet US or whatever, all these places are like on the board to be the next Alabama coach? Like, is that fair? No, it's not fair. But he's lost 4 games where they were favored by X amount of points. And, Nick Saban was, 143-2 or whatever the heck the number was. So that's what he's going up against. So Ash is compared, fairly or not, to Golden. Kalen DeBoer compared to Nick Saban. That's part of the job. You took the job. That's what's going to happen. So not fair, but it's a reality.
And I think there's a good chance it gets better just because it's your first game against a team that's changing quarterbacks, that changed all their wide receivers, and you don't know exactly what it's going to look like, right? So I kind of give some grace there. What I will say, and I wonder if you think this is fair, I don't think in their wildest dreams Miami could have asked Notre Dame to play a certain kind of way than the way that they played. What their kind of scheme was. It's like, you're gonna let our quarterback just kind of not have to make a bunch of big decisions, and pre-snap is going to be pretty straightforward and all that stuff. Yeah. I think which is, that was a mistake, right? And I just don't count on Notre Dame making mistakes like that in the future, just with their staff, not just Ash, but all of them in the defensive staff. Mick Irish 3 asked, did either of you see any issues with Carr's cadences that would have slowed the O-line down from coming out of their stance?
I mean, I didn't see anything specifically from that. I don't know. Like that would have to be a question of like, they would have to tell you, like the O-line would have to tell you if that was an actual issue. But also when you're playing on the road, and I mean, by all accounts was very loud in the stadium. That's why the defense is such an advantage. It has a huge advantage. Yeah. That's the other thing that it's like people just act like the game is like, well, the defense could play almost the exact same way that they did against Texas A&M, and they will be better because they're at home and they'll have that benefit. And if they just get a lead and have that too, because the crowd will be more into it, whatever, like third down on it's different at home than it is on the road, all of those kind of things. Right. And if teams got a silent count, they got to do all this. It's way easier. That's why a lot of teams are bad on the road in college football, because of the environments they play in.
Yeah. Speaking of the O-line and, cadences and stuff, it got me thinking about some short yardage stuff. There's 2 things. Notre Dame needs to figure out what's going on with their tight ends.
Yes.
They cannot have Will Pauling, Malachi Fields, Jaden, like they cannot be inline guys. Like Miami saw that they were in line and they crashed their safeties so hard inside on those wide receivers. And look, they could not block them. And I get it. That's not what they do.
Of course, that's not. It's
like that. That's you're putting
dumb.
Those players in a losing position, and it happened over. It didn't actually cost them in this game. It did kind of on the Price fumble, and that could have been a huge deal, obviously. But it's just like Jack Larson. He can't do that. Well, I don't understand.
Well, the whole thing too is like, one of the advantages of being Notre Dame, and I mean, I know it's so funny because, obviously Matt Freeman wants them to go like, the varsity blues oop-de-oop offense where they're just like running 5 wide all the time, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the advantages of playing in 12 personnel and having all these tight ends and all this that are, supposed to be weapons is that, weapons and also guys who can block, is that teams don't see it that much from a lot of teams. They played the whole game in 11 personnel, other than when they go 21, right? Like, which they did a handful of times. You become too predictable when it's like that, because they don't have to substitute They run the same people all the time. They don't have to change like, oh, we got to get another linebacker in. Oh, they ran tight on like that. That also makes it easier to play defense when you're not changing as much with personnel and all that. Because they're not, if it's just Raritan and 3 other receivers, that makes it so much easier. It makes it so much easier for the offense. Like you have to do more. And it's a real indictment of those guys that they did it. Maybe it will be something that they change and they feel confident enough to play those other guys. I mean, it's got to be something where, because the other thing is if they're not confident in Ty Washington or Jack Larson to play now, then you got to get James Flanagan up to speed, and he's got to or you in those situations, especially in the goal line, you got to get another tackle or somebody in there in those situations. That's what you have to do. You can't play it like that, or you spread those guys out, and because the tight formation with those guys, you like you said, it's asking them to lose. You're putting in those guys in a position to lose, and it's just a dumb thing to do.
Well, it's like you have, if Ty Washington's hurt his wrist or whatever, then he's hurt. I don't know.
Yeah.
Jack Larson, he can't down block. You know who else played tight end in high school? Preston Zinner. Put Preston Zinner on a goal line package and have him block. Yeah. Like you cannot.
Yeah, put a defensive lineman. Figure something out.
Yeah.
Figure something out, because that ain't it. That ain't it.
It can't be Will Pauling.
It's untenable. It's untenable.
Yeah.
And even Malachi Fields, who's like 6'4", 220, that's not what you ask him to do. That's not why you brought him to Notre Dame to do that.
Yeah.
Even if it was like Chase Claypool, who was like a pretty good blocker at Notre Dame, he couldn't even do that. I will say, this is random. I know it's just whatever. Now I'm on total tangent, but I'll tell you a guy they missed, and Jaden Thomas. Because Jaden Thomas, first of all, the wide receivers, and you could definitely get on Mike Brown for this. Your guys need to do a better job of blocking. Period. It was gross. It was not good
at all.
It was not good. They got to do a better. They got to do a better job. And Jaden Thomas was the best blocker they had at receiver. Not just that, they could play him as a tight end, as like a fullback. They could do all these different things with him. He was a very valuable piece in the offense, even if he wasn't like a big threat in terms of what he was doing as a receiver. Like, he literally, in the first game last year, he pancaked Torian York, all SEC linebacker. He pancaked a linebacker. You don't see that from a receiver very often. You never see it. So it's like, that's the kind of thing too, like where, like, okay, so I don't know. This guy's got a weird thing. I don't know what his name is. But he says Cam Williams supposed to be. Don't even put it up there. But he said Cam Williams supposed to be a dud. I mean, they played a bunch of receivers anyways. It's like they couldn't get the ball to receivers. Forget about that. But Cam Williams, I'll tell you what, he looks like a guy there, and I have no idea how he's really is as a blocker or whatever. But you want to find a role. Here's a role.
That's your role.
Let's see you stick your head in there and do it. Like let's see somebody do that, because especially if you're not going to be the guy to get the ball this year, it's like Ben Skoranek. Ben Skoranek is literally playing in the league right now because he will do anything. He'll play at fullback. He'll go on receiver. He plays with special teams. He does all this stuff. He's just a ball player. And sometimes you just need guys like that, or ball players and guys. It's exactly like looking for the team glory kind of thing.
Yeah.
Find some more team glory guys there who can help there, because it's not what they did there was a bad plan, all of it is bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't be having that. All right. BVZ. This is about Joe Rudolph cross-training players. And it's been going on in the chat today as well. So it's a good kind of topical thing. Cross-training O-line at different positions to bring versatility that has also been said to allow the best linemen to get on the field. Is it possible that by doing this, at least some of our O-linemen have become jack of all trades rather than masters of of one.
Harry Easton did a ton of cross training, so I don't know why people forget this, but that was definitely a thing that he did. Like, obviously there was multiple guys who started at different positions in their careers, Tommy Kramer, Alex Bars. If people recall that, like, Aaron Banks was actually the backup left tackle, for Liam Eichenberg. They didn't have he was the next best guy. So when Liam Eichenberg got his eye poked out in that, well, not out, but he got his eye poked in the, that would be something else.
Yeah.
But he got his eye poked in that Florida State game. And he was out for, I don't know, a few series or whatever. Banks came in at left tackle. Like, it's very common. It's very common at all levels. It's like NFL, whatever. It's very common. I don't think that is, for young guys. Yes, it is harder. And I think that it can be a challenge, especially if you were someone, for so many of these guys who just play tackle in high school, and then it's an adjustment, right? It's like, well, now you're playing guard and you got to do this. But also, when we talk about finding your best five, that's how you find your best five. Because sometimes a kid who you recruited to tackle ends up being a better guard than who you had at a guard, right? And it's just different. Or like how Pat Coogan, I mean, frankly, he was not a very good left guard for Notre Dame during the 2023 season, was a much better center, so it isn't a bad thing to be a jack of all trades and whatever. Just some guys I think are better at certain positions.
I will say, like, and this maybe has less to do with the question, but he really does like Anthony Knapp at left tackle. He really does. And if he's wrong about that, then this thing with Gerby Lambert playing all this right guard and stuff to try to get him in the game, which you kind of understand, right? Like, you want a guy like Gerby Lambert to play, right? So you understand it at that point. He really needs to be right about Anthony Knapp, because there's players who could be repping over there that haven't been. Because is Styles Prescott a better left tackle than Gerby Lambert would be? We don't know, right? And we don't know because he hasn't repped there. So, like, that's kind of the question. Like, Will Black, like you mentioned before, he's been playing guard. Are you going to now rep him at left tackle if you feel like that's if that's a solution to the problem? If there is a problem at left tackle, that's something we can't really know. I mean, we can discuss it, but we don't know because we haven't been there. We don't know what any of these guys look like, and then that's the difficult part of, like, not going to practice and things like that. We know we can find out how they feel about players, but when you watch them play, it is what it is. I can't sit here and say, oh, like, he was wrong about Anthony Knapp, because I had no reason to think that it was going to look like that. Like, he looked the same as Emil Wagner. So it just, he's got to play better. He has to play better.
Oh, he has to play. He has to play so much better. Yeah. That's 100% true. I also just want to point out that, like, talking about cross training, Charles Jagasaw plays right guard one game, plays left tackle the next game. Yeah. Like, that happens, right? And like, Charles Jagasaw also, when he first arrived at Notre Dame, and they had more questions about guard, and he arrived in the summer, so it's like hard when you're in the summer to really kind of get it. That's another thing against Will Black too. I mean, whatever. I'm not blaming anyone if they're not an early enrollee. It's not their job to be an early enrollee.
Right,
but like, he wasn't. So, but with Jagasaw wasn't an early enrollee, and he came in, and they liked him, but they were like, they thought maybe his quickest path to playing, if they needed him during the year, was at guard. So he repped at right guard, and he was right guard for most of that whole camp. He was there. And then all of a sudden, when they get to the bowl game, he was starting at left tackle, right? So I don't know where, like, we don't know that as soon as, like, Will Black didn't win the right guard job, or like hadn't been repping with whatever, where he's at. I mean, he's not in the 2 deep. He wasn't listed on the 2 deep. So we don't know actually where he's at, but we don't know that they haven't been, like, repping him at left tackle this whole time and getting him ready, and in hoping that he's going to be this at some point. Also, remember Joe Alt went from, hey, get this guy a different number so he can play tight end block for us. And then 3 games later, he's the starting left tackle for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So it can happen.
Yeah. Next question from Rockney. After a loss like Miami, is it better to have a bye week for the extra practice or to play as quickly as possible? I think given their opponent this year, it's good to have a bye week.
Yes. And
I think generally
the Sunday game, it would have been a short week.
Yeah.
Also, I think given the issues in the game that probably need to be addressed, I think having a regular week probably wouldn't. And the importance of this next game, I think it worked out well that they have a bye week.
Yeah, agree. Exer ND 1994. Did we overestimate the O-line because last year Riley's ability to run helped cover up some issues? Or was this just one bad game, get it out of the system, now let's get to work situation?
I mean, he definitely covered up issues, especially early in the year. Like, definitely, right? Like, that was part of it. But I also think that, it could have been in this game if those guys were getting whooped like they were. If he was he's still getting, like, he would have made more plays running the ball just because that's what he can do. But he would have got sacked more in this game, or they wouldn't have been. They would have had the same problems running with Jeremiah Love that they would have had in this game, or that play would have got blown up. He would have got blown up in the backfield the same way on that 3rd and short, right? Like, so I don't think that is. It's not directly, it's not completely related. I wouldn't say in that way, but he definitely helped with. So that example of like Carr throwing the ball directly to the sidelines and not to the line of scrimmage or whatever. And even though he was kind of escaping already, Leonard would have escaped that and turned that into a positive somehow. Right. But that's, other than that, I mean, Carr did a pretty good job escaping on that touchdown and all that. And did another one too, where he beat a sack. And so, pretty good.
I think my biggest concern was Carr not being able to do what he did from the pocket and escaping the rush. Given how I saw Carr manipulate the pocket and move around in the pocket and avoid sacks when he did, I think if the offensive line played exactly like they did last year, Notre Dame would have won the game. And they didn't. They didn't. They played worse than under any other time for Riley Leonard. So that's what happened. And frankly, their second worst game. Probably their worst game from a performance standpoint last year was NIU, and Leonard was awful in that game. It's just one of those things. They didn't have a good performance at all. But I think going forward, if they return to their level of play from last year, I think they'll be just fine. Keenan 2002, I thought the wide receiver blocking was surprisingly bad. I've had questions about their coaching. I couldn't see who the culprits were. Curious if you guys could get a better read of the wide receiver blocking. We kind of talked about this earlier. It was not good, kind of across the board. I do think like Faison, you can always kind of count on is going to work his butt off and he's going to battle. But he was the one getting a lot of these screens, so it's like he wasn't being asked to block. But yeah,
I will say too, like Greathouse gets a little bit of a bad rap on a couple of them because they were not good reads by
put in a bad situation.
Yeah, put in a bad situation. No one is making those blocks. But then other ones too, you got to make a block. Like he didn't do a good enough job there. I also think is like when you run the ball a lot, guys get better at blocking. And when you're running a lot of RPOs and not having to actually run block, like you are running a route or you're running a thing instead of actually blocking, it's hard to do a good job blocking. I think like it's just, you don't get it. It's kind of like playing offensive line. If you don't get in a rhythm of actually run blocking, if you just run, very sparingly, it's part of the reason why, Mike Leach teams were like bad at run blocking. Well, they do, but they're great, dropping back, and they always had tackles who could, pass pro. Well, they do it 4,000 times in a year or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's going to help.
Yeah. CHSFB 75. Did Ash have the defense set up and call the game the way he did because he was afraid of Miami's speed? Still cannot figure out why the linebackers are playing read and react rather than just attacking. I think Matt kind of alluded to this, that they were concerned about getting beat over the top. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm sure that there was some of like beating over the top of like not giving up explosives in the pass game. Like, I think that's part of it. But I also think that, there's a balance there, and they didn't do a good enough job of balancing, of having to deal with that. You don't want to be where Notre Dame was at against USC, where it's like, hey, these guys just keep chucking it and they're just keep running the same coverage over and over. Like, yeah, you don't want to be that, but they need to mix it in better to, they maybe they gave it too much respect.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And the linebacker play stuff was like, I mean, I definitely think that's anyone who would watch that game would be like, wow, why aren't they playing more downhill? I think that is partly a function of how they wanted them to play. And, I hope that they make adjustments there.
Yeah. KMAC ND. Does Notre Dame have a run play designed to go outside the tackles? Every run seems designed to go between the tackles.
I mean, they ran some outside zone in this game, and then the tackles didn't block it. Like, those guys kind of blew up the play. So, part of it, that was, one of the things is like, they would have to like cut it inside because those guys did a good job of like setting the edge.
Yeah. They just got bullied around, which was, I mean, a major part of the problem. Pep ND04. Any update on Aeneas Williams? No. I mean, he came in on the one play. That was a touchdown to Faison. He was in on that one play. He had the brace on his elbow. It's one of those games where maybe they could have used him, but again, Notre Dame wants to get Jeremiah Love on third downs. Like they want him to be a third down option. And so it's like, then you're bringing him in to run for Love or Price. And there's just, I don't know that Notre Dame wants to do that.
Also, in a weird thing, like Notre Dame was pretty good on third down in this game. Like they were 4 of 9. And I mean, I don't even count like the, end of game stuff or whatever, right? Like, they did a pretty good job on third down. And I don't know how much he would have directly impacted that part of it. It's such a weird thing too, to be like, you won the red zone, you won third down. And well, I mean, that's probably why it was a 3-point game, really, because they won those situational things, but they lost turnovers and, some other things.
They lost turnovers is huge, right? I mean, 2 turnovers to 0. Is there extra? I mean, it's not just that they obviously had a chance to score and they didn't. I mean, they scored 3 points and that was the difference in the game, but you're also losing your offensive possession, right? So, and you're not going down and scoring. So that makes it difficult, especially when one of those turnovers comes on 2nd and 2 around midfield. Yeah. You feel like you're going in at that point. T Ryan 22. Hey guys, love the show. When Jagusaw comes back, what position do you think he'll play? Any chance you think they'll try him at left tackle? It'll be interesting to see how this L line shakes once everyone is healthy. I mean, you just couldn't even say until you know where Notre Dame is at when he comes back. I mean, there might be an injury somewhere, and it's like, well, it's obvious, right? Yeah. And we need to see how these guys play. I mean, to me, this is going into October, November. You got to see where it's at. I couldn't even say it. It is interesting to me. Like if he was to come back this week, would they put him at right guard? Would they put him at left tackle? It's a good question, but he's not coming back this week. So
this week would be a different question. And, I'm not trying to throw shade at him, but this is very much hey, what do you think the 2026 offensive line is going to look like? It's kind of like that. No clue, because we're just going to have to, they're going to see game by game. Maybe like Knapp gets back and all of a sudden starts playing much better, and then he's like a better version of the guy that he was last year. Maybe he's not, and that right guard position is like, wow, Lambert really took hold of that, and he's like been great, or Absher or whatever, right? Like,
yeah,
either could happen.
Yep. Next question from Drew Brennan, 77. What sort of conversations do you think Coach Freeman is having with Chris Ash this week? I imagine he's seeing all the stuff you talk about in your film review on Sunday's show. If we don't see a difference against A&M, then what are we even doing here? I mean, this is the major question to me. What does Marcus Freeman think of this? What did he think of how that went? It's very interesting for me to, I would love to get some insight into this because it's a major question.
I think he thinks it went bad. I guarantee you, like, you know what I mean? Or not up to maybe not bad, but not up to the standard they want. Because when you talk about like, hey, no 7.3% havoc, no turnovers, no like this, whatever. They gave up like 55% success rate in the pass game. It's like, well, we changed the whole point of changing, if you wanted to do more zone, or you want to do this, is so you don't have that, because that was the best passing success rate. That would have been the best one other than Ohio State last year. Mm-hmm. And guess what? They didn't have Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka at Carnell Tate. Like, so that's not the answer. So yeah. I mean, his whole thing is question everything.
Yeah.
He's questioning. And I mean, frankly, there's no way Ash has a big enough ego to think that like he's not going to question everything. No one goes in and it's like, guess what? I'm going to do the exact same thing because I really want to get fired or whatever. No way.
And I will say this for Marcus Freeman too, like when he talks about, at halftime, he says we got to rush 4, and after the game we got to win with 4. If that's what Ash is telling him, and even if Marcus doesn't agree with that, he will say, this is what it is, and this is what we have to do, because Marcus Freeman will take that responsibility onto himself.
Yes.
So like, and I know he's done this in the past with other things where it's like, hey, this is what we decided and this is what we're doing. In private, he thinks, I don't like that we did this, And so it's just, that's also available. So we'll see. Let's see I want to see how he speaks to the media and what he says about things. Because it's very interesting. Can you comment on the questions raised in this thread? And so basically the thread was about, let me get it up here. Refs like blowing the whistle and forward progress.
Forward progress. I did think that was bad in this game. I was like, the guys stopped. Like they didn't, and they just let it keep going. Yeah, I mean, it was noticeable in this game. But I also think if you look at it, like, we don't know if it would have been the same for Notre Dame's backs, but they didn't have many of those situations.
Yeah.
So they should have blown it down. I don't think that's how you're supposed to call it. Like, they were stopped. Blow the friggin' whistle. Yes. But maybe if people would have been saying it a different way, Notre Dame fans would have reacted a different way if Notre Dame was running it down on them. And frankly, even though they got that, it wasn't like they like killed Notre Dame in the run game or anything.
Yeah. As a former defender, and I'm sure you feel this way too, it's so completely, what's the word? Contradictory, the way that they view this thing, where it's like they hold him up and it's stalemated for like a second, right? Stop the play. But then they let like every lineman, every other person like start pushing and pushing and pushing, and it's like you let it go, and it's like, okay, like the play's done. Like the play's been done. If they do it the other way,
why do they blow it down when it's like they're driving them back?
Yeah.
That's
no. That I've never liked it.
They're the quick whistle that way, yes. And whatever. We're defensive guys, sue us. I'm sorry. That's just, it's a joke. Refs, you suck.
Next question from Smooth Diver. Is it time for Jeremiah Love to dish
we already
love?
went
We
over
talked
this.
about this. Yeah, talked about that. Irish KG07. I believe this is the last question of the day. Mike's initial takes have been slanted towards being most concerned about the defense, but Jamie's rewatch notes makes it sound like it wasn't as bad as it felt. However, the offense notes don't offer the same level of encouragement. Which side of the ball makes up the most ground, making fans feel better next weekend?
I mean, I honestly don't know. I would bet on the defense because I think you bet on the talent there, and I would bet on that more than anything else because and also too I'm Marcel Reed, Texas A&M's quarterback. He holds the ball longer than like most quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So if he does that in this game, they're going to get home more, right? They're going to get more pressure on him.
Yeah.
Yes, he offers different challenges in terms of, containing him in the pocket and his scrambling ability and his ability to run, but that's a lot different. And then also too, like I said about the advantages of playing at home. I mean, both of the sides of the ball are going to get the advantages of playing at home. But I just think like overall, there's less questions about the talent on defense than there is about specific personnel on offense, is what I would say. So that's why I would lean towards the defense. But I mean, there's more questions about Ash than there is Denbrock. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Like we think of CJ Carr as like a proven commodity at this point. It's still a second start. There's going to be ups and downs to this. And that's why, to me, you kind of just got to count on like Jeremiah Love all the time. And your backs, and lean on those guys because they're the ones that you know about. And to your point about the defense, like you just feel like game in and game out, they should be the ones that you can count on the most because they have the least amount of questions. So that's kind of how that goes. We are done. Good job, everyone. Good job by you, Jamie. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please hit that like. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so whenever it is, we are going live. Links to the podcast, of course, are in the description below. Jamie and I will be back. I guess we'll be back on Monday. To talk about Power Hour, and then Tuesday, Hit Hustle, and on and on. I'm flying out on Friday to South Bend. I'll be in South Bend for the Texas A&M game. I got to teach you, Jamie. Remind me. I got to teach you how to do the streams. So we'll do that, and then so have a good rest of your day, everyone. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the bye week. Keep hitting and hustling.